Hey there, Independent Scientologists! Discover a new perspective to your bridge by visiting ao-gp.org. Get in session with remote auditing using the Theta Meter. Are you curious about where you stand? Head on over to ao-gp.org now and take our free personality test. Join the growing group of Independent Scientologists today.
Hi, and welcome to another AOGP Outside of the Church podcast. This is season 8, episode 1, and it is March the 21st. It is now officially spring in the Northern Hemisphere and officially autumn or fall in the Southern Hemisphere for me and Scientology. Quentin, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
We're going to tie things up in a tidy little bow. We're going to sort of go back rearview mirrors for a minute, and then we're going to talk about the Independent Scientology Grade Chart. And you were telling me right before we started that we kind of advanced everything up to your clear attestation, and we had talked to Ed about his meeting with LRH and Quentin, and then prior to that, how does Independent Scientology work? In those two episodes. So we were kind of progressing in a certain direction. You want to tell me about what your thoughts were on how we tied that up in a little bow?
Yeah, I mean, basically, geez, as we kind of came off the high of, hearing more about what was going on with Ed and meeting LRH and that whole amazing story. It was a 2 hour podcast, and if you haven't heard it, it's really, really interesting just the whole way it all unfolded. I think there's even more um, that we were going to talk about, even concerning that.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, shortly after that, um, maybe like a week or so, I I tested to going clear
Mm-hmm.
with auditing with you, and it's just been an amazing, amazing journey ever since. And so, after going clear, I kind of started asking questions about like, wait a minute, this is how it feels, this is how it goes, this is how it works. And you showed me the grade chart, which you have like right behind your head there. And as you kind of walked me up the grade chart, like this is how it works, I was like, people need to know this.
Mm-hmm.
People need to know, like, this is, I mean, it's there in print, the grade chart is available, but do people really understand how and why it moves up the way it does? And so
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to just talk about that. I want to talk about the grade chart. I want to talk about like how LRH discovered this bridge to freedom and
Mm-hmm.
how we can walk it if we so choose.
Well, it all starts out, and like you said before we got started, the scale of awareness is in the middle between the training and the processing side of the 1980-81 Scientology independent Scientology grade chart. And you have all these different levels on the grade chart where the person is at. And where the grade chart really starts at is need for change. That's when a
Yeah.
person gets on the grade chart. So, everybody's is doing independent Scientology for a reason. There's something they want to change or improve. And that's where we start out on the scale of awareness. And that's where you're at when you do a purification rundown, your objectives, your Scientology drug rundown. It's worth noting that there are 3, if you want to include the objectives, 4, and that includes TRs, 2 training routines, TR 0 through 4. 5, if you include that, but actual drug handlings on the grade chart, there's the Scientology drug rundown, the New Era drug rundown for Dianetics, and then there's New OT4 that handles the OT band aspects of drugs. So that's
Mm,
three plus TRs and objectives that you're handling the effects of drugs. And it's important to note that auditing cannot occur where drugs are still pushing the person around. And the reason and how these things push people around is it puts them out of present time. They might be a potential trouble source. They're taking drugs to forget or cover over
mm,
something that's going on in their life. They could be taking
master
alcohol to
pain.
forget and that mask the pain. That's what drugs are for. They're not the solution to the problem. They're a masker. We were just at
Right.
a doctor's office the other day, and she used that exact term. She said, it's just masking it. It's not the solution. And And that's the society that we live in, is the push button society. Take a pill, make it go away. But the problem
Right.
is that when you take drugs, it keys the case out for LRH and then doesn't. So the mass comes in harder. So this is why you have this, okay, I need to take a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more in
Every
order to
time, yeah.
get that same release, that same high. And yes, you could say that a high is a form of release, but it isn't a stable release. It's a non-stable release. And those have to be handled first with the Scientology drug rundown. Prior to that, the purification rundown to get it out of the body, the residual effects out of the
Hmm.
body, get the person to do their objectives so that you're straightening out the person's time track to where they're in present time. And when you're talking to them, they're not thinking about something else. They're in the room, they can control objects in the room, they know where they are, that sort of a thing. So these are all these basics that have to be gotten in, but it is extremely important to note for people that are new to this subject that we can't audit somebody that's on drugs.
Yeah.
You have to dry out first, and you have to get this stuff out of your system. Otherwise, you're going to get very little, if any, gains. And
Hmm.
that's something we've been running into, and it bears
It's
noting.
huge.
Yeah, it bears noting. In what you do for your clients, as well as what we do for ours,
Hmm.
how many people are on pharmaceutical drugs
Yep.
like candy?
Especially now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially now. And I'll say this, and obviously, and I'm glad you started with that and looking at the different places on the bridge where drugs and the effects of drugs are handled, because it shows why we as independent Scientologists are so big on making sure you're not drugged in your experience. That doesn't mean that, if you go to a doctor and you guys decide that that's how you want to handle your medical situation, you're a free will being. You can decide how you want to handle it yourself.
Hmm.
But understanding that, certain drugs do have a residual effect, and
Hmm.
it does stick with you for quite some time, and maybe even longer, as it goes on. But I want to say this, because for me, I would really, really recommend people starting with that when they come in at that need for change. I got to change my life. I got to change. So I would really recommend people starting on courses.
Hmm.
And I say that as a student myself on the College of Independent Scientology.org. I would say that because, like, when you know this stuff, when you know uh, and understand it and get a full conceptual understanding of how it works and what's going on with the mind and the anatomy of the mind, and you understand book one Dianetics, and you understand um, why the purification process is so important. When you study this, you get an awareness about yourself that, for me at least, a lot of times while I was studying,
Hmm.
I was getting keyed out. Like, stuff was just like, oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
I would get these oh my God moments, OMG moments, that I would feel so much better just by studying and knowing what's going on with me, or what was going on with me. And that started me really looking and reaching for the higher stuff on the bridge. So I would definitely say there's a reason why the bridge is set up the way LRH did it. And that the introductory levels and understanding, from the course perspective, whether
Hmm.
you do the extension courses, whether you do some of the academy courses on the college, like, get in a course,
Hmm.
because once you know it, nobody can take it away from you. If you feel good, that can be taken away. Okay, if you
Yeah.
feel good, something can impact you. Anything, life be life. And if you feel good after a wonderful session, great. But that can be that can be hit again. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
when you know that you know that you know that you know, you got it, and you know how to deal with it in life as stuff comes up.
Well, and that's the thing. 50% of the gains are from auditing, 50% are from processing. And if you're going to stay out of the soup
Training.
that
Mhm.
you get out, that you get out of the soup in auditing, to stay out of the soup, you got to get the training, because if you don't
Yeah.
understand the mechanics of the mind and how these things happen, you're not going to get too far. What does LRH say about an OT that doesn't have training? He says, well, now they're just a big dumb thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And you stumble around and literally without training, I hit my finger and I knew immediately how to handle it, what to do, what not to say, what
Hmm.
not to, I knew how to move in through it. And it was gone after a few seconds, a few minutes. And so all I'll say is that get training first. And now if there is a part of you that really needs help, right? Like I need somebody to help me.
Hmm.
Definitely feel free to reach out to us and have a dialogue, have a conversation because it is definitely going to help just to kind of two-way calm about it so
Hmm.
you can have that consideration. Um, I know after my purification run now, like for me, I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying this, but
That's
like
okay.
stuff was coming out of my eyes.
Hmm.
So I had anybody who's followed our podcast, they know I've had bad allergies. Allergies have always been an issue for me, and so I used to take all kinds of allergy medications. Not anymore, but from stuff in my mouth, up my nose, in my eyes, everything. Okay, shots, all that stuff, and um, while I was in on the Purif, stuff was coming out of my eyes. White stuff was coming out of my eyes, and it was like dripping down my face and running down my face. And it wasn't like tea; it was white.
Hmm.
And I had to, I had to get it all out. So there's stuff that's in there that you don't know be in there that could be affecting you. And doing the Purif, and boy, oh boy, it can really help out.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
if you understand these things that you, like Ellery says, to the degree that you understand something is to the degree that you can't be the effect of it.
Hmm.
So understanding the basics behind, I mean, for example, the first step of handling a person who is a potential trouble source, somebody who is either receiving suppression presently or in the past, and they have somebody in the present reminding them of that suppression in the past. LRH says the first and only step that you can do is you need to educate that person. And a lot of times that solves the problem where they get to understand the mechanics of suppression, and then they spot who it is that's suppressing them. And then they can get out of that situation because now they are at cause over that situation.
Right.
Same holds true for the human mind. How much did you learn? Let's put it this way. You read Dianetics before you did your co-audit with your twin.
Correct.
In Okay. And where did you learn the most? You learned how to do it through book one, Dianetics. But
Mhm.
would you say that just studying it would have helped you, or was it applying that to somebody else that really it really hit home with you?
No, being it was great getting audited, and I loved going in session because we discovered more and more and more about ourselves every time. But being the auditor and as the person is in session, right? So I'm the auditor and I got you in session. And to see the manifestations, see the things turn on, the dramatizations, see the stuff turn on in this person's body from the body being contorted and snot running out of the nose and the, crying and all this stuff. And like seeing the body turning red and the face getting, you could see it happening.
Hmm.
And what was interesting for me as the auditor was I was able to say, oh, that's what's going on with this,
Hmm.
in our experience, right? That's what's going on. And so by getting trained first and then applying that to a PC, a pre-clear, it was really, really good for me to see it in session,
Hmm.
right? I don't know if we do the Dianetic co-audit or how that works or whatever, but I'll say
Yeah, we
that,
do.
mhm, I'll definitely say that Dianetics is a great, great gradient for
Hmm.
people to come in and get a awareness of what it feels like to be audited and what it feels like to audit once they get properly had it on it.
Hmm.
It's good.
When you first read the book, were you dubious in the efficacy, the result of what he was saying that you would get? I mean, were you like sort of like, mm-hmm. Okay, whatever.
I wasn't, because I cleared my words. I'm gonna say this, because going through that book, it's a confront. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
500 page plus book, 500 plus page book. So it is a bit of a confront, but going through it, clearing your words, getting full conceptual understanding on Dianetics alone, right? What it did for me is it gave me absolute clarity about going clear, about what clear was about, right?
Hmm.
And about how one is not. Does that make
Hmm.
sense? Like how one is not there because, oh yeah, I know what my dramatizations are. And I had some. Trust me, I
Hmm.
know what my dramatizations are. I know the things that was kicking on or turning on, and we hear it all the time, and it's like pop psychology, triggers, our triggers. You know,
Hmm.
oh, that triggered me. That just triggered me. I was talking to a girl. I was talking to a girl in San Diego, and she goes, we are at a party, and she goes, um, I forgave him, but I was triggered. And I said, I said, okay. I said, so you forgave him. That means you let it go. You good, right? Yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm good. But I'm triggered. And I was like, it ain't gone, baby.
Right.
It ain't gone.
Right.
And so we have it all the time, these triggers that turn on. But I think that once you study and know what's going on, you can spot it out. So coming out of the introductory levels and dealing with like book one Dianetics, listening to some lectures and stuff like that can really, really help. Then you go into on the bridge, like actually start,
Hmm.
which is the purification. This is on the processing side.
Hmm.
What's the equivalent of that on the audience side? Where would one want to go in? Not audience, sorry, training side. Where would one go
Well,
in?
well, depending on when you're looking at it, depending on the grade chart and time. Now it is student hat. That's where you can do the basic study course. That's free with us, and that gives you
Mhm.
the greatest hits of it. But student hat is where you start out because you have to professionally be a professional student in order to get
Student.
professional results. And that's learning how to clear your words, barriers to study, and there's 10 lectures from the St. Hill Special Briefing course and one other lecture series that are in student hat to get you to be able to study. And then you move on progressively. If you were looking at the bridge directly from the processing side to the training side, next would be Pro TRs, probably the best course in Scientology that definitely makes you a pro, not only in life, but in auditing as well.
Hmm. Yeah. So I can agree with that. So, um, for those of you that are wanting to go up the bridge and you're wanting to experience some of these amazing wins that we talked about on the podcast that I did in the one from last episode, go back and listen to season 7, episode 20. But if you want to experience these, then again, starting with the training is going to be probably the fastest way because when you train, you move faster on the processing side. So where people always ask, well, how long does it take? How long does it take? And I can only say, about my journey, what's that saying? If you want to chop down a tree in an hour, I spend the first 45 minutes sharpening the axe,
Mhm.
right? And and that's where I'll say is for me, that was true. Like I needed to spend time sharpening the axe. And then when I got to chopping, I was
Mhm.
able to chop off engrams. I was able to chop off these things. I was able to get through these locks and these secondaries. I was able to get through these issues. And because I had some stuff. But sharpening the axe of my own mind, my own
Mhm.
awareness, my own intelligence,
Mhm.
I was able to then go in session and chop down trees a lot faster.
Yeah,
That's
because
how I look
you're
at it.
you're you're raising your awareness through training, and one of the things that we do when people do start auditing with us, either it's a life repair package or even a grade chart package, clear package or OT package, and they're starting from the bottom up, is we go over all of the Scientology axioms, all of the Dianetic axioms, as well as your standard Scientology CS1, which is your Scientology terms, Dianetic terms, PTS terms. And the reason why we take the time to go over the axioms is because most people don't get introduced to those unless they picked up the books early on. They don't get introduced to those basics, why auditing works, how it works, all of these very simple concepts that tie together until you're actually in auditor training. A lot of people
Mm.
have, I mean, I don't know how many people we've done this with. They're like, well, where were these 20 years ago?
Right. How many times did I say that to you? I was
Yeah,
like, we should have known this a long time ago.
right. Right. And it takes time. It's 10 to 12 hours that we spend for free going over this. What does that mean to you? Give me some examples, that sort of a thing. But see, the thing is we're not even doing this metered. If we did it metered, you would see that as we're going over these axioms, these people are getting tens and 20s and 50s and 60s of divisions of tone arm because they're understanding the underlying basics. Because they just heard, well, I got some auditing and I know that it worked. Or a friend of mine said, I need to get a life repair. But
Mhm.
that's it. But they need to
Right.
understand how that is, because if they understand how and why, now they know what to look for, and they cognite, they have realizations quicker. They're getting more divisions of tone arm
Mhm.
motion per hour, sometimes 2 and 3 times as much in an hour,
That's
because
amazing.
they understand it. So if you can just do that with the axioms, just think of what you could do is if you continued your training in tandem as you were getting auditing.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, and that's
Yeah.
why you do pro TRs. You can't do auditing over pro TRs because pro TRs per LRH is case gain.
I was just going to go into TRs because I believe that when I started doing TRs, for me it was life changing because my ability to confront went up,
Mhm.
just like everything in my life, my finances, definitely my finances. Like my ability to really confront my finances went up dramatically just doing TRs. And then communication, of course, and because of my job, I because of what I do, I make money via communication, and so that helped me to become even more successful in my business. So just doing the TRs and objectives and kind of going on that side as well really, really helped me.
Mhm.
Pro TRs, of course, even more so because, like you said, it is case gain. So
Mhm.
you have the ability to handle things, that you couldn't handle before. At least you didn't think you could.
Yeah, well, the end result of pro TRs is to handle any social situation, no matter how rough, with communication alone.
Oh, I love it.
So
Absolutely love it.
that's the primary thing. But confront what you're doing with the grade chart in auditing and both training is auditing. You're getting a person to confront their case on a very shallow gradient scale, more and more and more and more and more. So now they're at cause over it and they're not the effect of it, but they need to get the
Right.
training to understand why that is as well, which doubles or triples their amount of confront on things. So confront is what you're getting from auditing. That's what it is. And that
True.
increases your awareness. If you can't confront something, how can you be aware of it? It's that simple.
Yeah. You can't even face it. You can't even take a look at it.
Right. And then you see that in life. You have something in your house or something that you want to do, or there's that treadmill that doesn't get used.
Hmm.
How long, if ever, let's just make it real to people. You know, how long, if ever, do you ever really confront that treadmill and get on that treadmill 5 days a week?
Jeez
Why?
Louise.
Why? Because your confront hasn't been rehabilitated to where you can get on that treadmill 4 or 5 days a week or one day a week. So that's what auditing changes, is because if you knew what was wrong with you, it wouldn't be wrong with you. That's why auditing works. Training now tells you, okay, this is really what's wrong with every being, is
Hmm.
this makeup of the mind. And you put those two together, the auditing and the training side, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I'm going to confront that. I'm going to get on there. So
Yeah.
it doesn't always come from the auditing side because you're just released from this stuff. Like we've mentioned in other podcasts, it's It's a release. It's a key out. New Era Dianetics or Book One Dianetics erases this stuff. You're just trying to key a person out with auditing on the Scientology side so you can get them to confront their reactive mind with New Era Dianetics. Training short circuits that. Now you understand complexity and confronting. You can ask yourself, what am I not confronting? Okay, I'm not confronting my treadmill. Okay, what's so complex about me getting on the treadmill? Well, I'm going to have to bust my ass. I don't want to confront that.
Right.
But see, you understand it because you got trained on that policy letter. What am I not confronting about busting my ass? Well, I just don't want to bust my ass. Okay, I need to apply a condition to that. What condition do I need to apply? Danger. I need to bypass habits and normal
Right.
routines and get my ass on the treadmill. See?
I feel triggered.
Did I miss a withhold, Quentin?
No, no, let me tell you, it's so interesting you talk about this because it's that for me, it's not the treadmill. For me, is I said to myself, I just want to do push-ups. All I gotta do is get on the floor and do the push-ups.
Yeah.
Right, right. And so feel the floor. Is there a floor there?
Yeah.
I need to get the floor.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, you know, but it also comes down to what LRH says, and I'm just adding this to give a fuller picture. LRH says
Mhm.
the definition of a silly optimist is somebody who thinks they're going to feel good every day in a meat body.
Yeah.
Okay. So to the degree that you have the information is to the degree that you can think with that data. Because you know what does data series 1 say, you know, that sanity is it's the recognition and availability of similarities, identities, and differences. Okay, so you can sort these things out. If you don't know what you don't know, how can you compare anything? Auditing is going to help with that, but it's only going to help to the degree that you get definitions cleared up by the auditor with you before you go in and actually do a deep dive into your case. Whereas if you get the training, you're getting all that information straight from LRH. Nobody else. It's not changed. It's not altered. We make sure of that.
Yeah.
And now you can think with that data, not only in life, but in session. So that's how it amplifies that case game.
Wow. So, okay, so got it. So study, train, get on course, get in session
Mm-hmm.
as you're on course, and you kind of, jockeying your way up, through those.
Mm-hmm.
ARC straight wire. When we talk about drug rundown, happiness rundown, did we talk about happiness? No. Okay, so happiness rundown.
Happiness rundown, as you can see on the grade chart in front of you, is adjudicated by the CS, is one of those.
Okay.
And happiness rundown would be basically you would CS that to somebody that well, maybe they didn't have the greatest parents. Maybe they didn't have the greatest foster home. Maybe they didn't, they didn't really understand that they needed to brush their teeth or take care of their brothers and sisters and stuff like that. I mean, there's certain situations where that comes up. I don't CS people for the happiness rundown that much, but it can be done if need be. It's something that we do offer, and it's a great rundown. And it's a very gradient thing. The next place that you would handle that sort of thing would be on grade 2 with overts and withholds. And
Oh, yeah.
even undercutting that is just basic concepts. That's what the way to happiness was. Is LRH wrote that because he could see that society was going down the tubes in the 80s and the late 70s, and that these things that should be obvious to people weren't obvious. That you should respect and take care of your parents. This was 40 years ago, over 40 years ago, that he saw this. And I mean, you see this all the time where kids don't respect their parents, they don't brush their teeth, they don't take showers, all this stuff. So that's what the happiness rundown is based off of, is the way to happiness. And then after that is ARC straight wire, where you're trying to get a person, basically you're trying to run Dianetic locks from an ARC standpoint and get charge off of the case so that their recall improves. And now you have something to audit, because you auditing as much book 1 as you had. You have to get the locks out of the way in order to get in there to get to the engrams, because they can't confront them.
let me tell you something. For those of you who have not studied Dynetics yet, please pick up this book. Get it on the course on the website rather, because let me tell you this: locks are something else. Okay, to be able to walk around in your life, to go around in your life, and just to encounter something, and it snap you back into
Mhm.
a messed up condition. It's
Mhm.
just a lock, just a thing. Okay. But it pulls you into this condition, and you're like, why do I feel this way? Why am I so agitated? Why am I so nervous? Why am I so anxious? Why am I so scared? Why
Mhm.
am I feeling this way? Like, it might not have nothing to do with nothing
Mhm.
until you know.
Mhm.
And, and I'm telling you, I had a client who I was doing book one auditing with and had a lock on the telephone in his office. Like the phone in his business at his office.
Mhm.
And his mother passed away. And he gets the call
Mhm.
on at work that this has happened. And without any warning, no, hey, sit down. I talk to you. No, the first thing he answered the phone, hello, this is John or whoever. And his sister goes, "What is that?" And she's screaming this on the phone.
Mhm.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. And all of a sudden, for years and years and years after that, he gets migraines. These
Mhm.
migraines. After being at work for so long, talking on the phone, migraines.
All right.
Comes on. Had no idea. And we was in session, and it came up. Boy, oh, boy, he cracked up laughing. Never had issues with migraines turning on at work again. No
Mhm.
problem.
Mhm.
So it's just knowing this stuff. You can see it, you can get it, and it blows your mind. So ARC straight wire, dealing with that stuff, getting it out of your way so you can have better recall. Oh,
Mhm.
it's all
Well,
there.
and a big part of ARC Straight Wire is the book self-analysis and the self-analysis list that you can do
Yes.
on yourself, and they're extremely remunerative, and you can just do a little bit every day and knock it out in a short order, but it really helps. And locks, like you were saying earlier, locks are a key in or a trigger, and that's
Mhm.
what ARC Straightwire and self-analysis helps, is to handle that so that you don't get so triggered.
Yep. Isn't that
Now that
wonderful?
Yeah, and it's super easy to do, and it's fun. If it isn't
Yeah.
Scientology, it ain't fun.
If it ain't fun, it ain't Scientology. Yep.
That's right. And then you go
Yeah.
from ARC Straightwire, now you're getting on to grade zero, where grade zero allows you, through the auditing processes that Hubbard created, to be able to communicate to the auditor specifically about anything, anytime, anywhere, anyhow. Because if you
Hmm.
can't tell your auditor what's going on, how can you get any better?
Right.
And then from there,
Yeah.
you've got grade one, which helps you with help and your viewpoint on help, and really gets you going on what needs to be done. Because most people view help as betrayal. When you offer help to somebody, like, what you talking about, Willis?
Right.
You know, they,
What you want? What you want for
right,
this?
right,
What's
exactly.
your
What's your angle?
intentions?
Right,
Right.
right. And if you don't trust the auditor to help you, well, how can you get any better?
Mm.
And that's what the grades are about, is they hit it from a bunch of angles, or what we call rudiments, the basics, on a large scale. Then you get into grade two, which is overts and withholds, that sort of thing.
I got a question real quick about
Mhm.
this, about the grades specifically. So, am I hearing that the grades are really meant to help you be a better PC
And that's pretty,
or a
yeah, that'll
better
help you be a
person?
better PC. Yes. I mean, that ultimately that's what it is, so that you can front up to the heavy lifting that's coming
Oh,
on
wow.
on a very, very shallow gradient. Because it used to be that new era Dynetics, and before that standard Dynetics, was literally the first thing that you did on the grade chart before the purification rundown came on. And so
Really?
yeah, back in the mid 70s, you did standard Dianetics as a first order of business. But see, the thing is what happened in the mid 70s is you were starting to see the result of the late 60s drug culture really take hold. And so these people
Okay.
had to have drugs gotten out of the way before they could even confront a lock, let alone the secondary or engram. And
Right,
LRH said,
right.
we've got to turn this thing around because it's too steep of a gradient and they can't handle it. Now, that may not be
Yeah,
true for anybody like me. I could have done it because I didn't have any drug history,
right.
but that's pretty rare these days.
Yeah. I mean, from the marijuana use to other hardcore drugs. I mean, I lived in California, so I mean, you go to a party and they trying to offer you Coke. So it's like, hey, you want some Coke? Like I'm thinking
Right.
like a Coca-Cola.
Right.
They ain't
Like
talking
it
about
isn't
Coca-Cola,
anything at
y'all.
all. Yeah.
Right.
And that's the indication that the society has really gone down the tubes because they don't even
Jeez.
recognize it as wrong.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you go to a club, look at all the things that
Yep.
are available at a club, ecstasy,
Yep.
I mean, you could just go on and on and on and on. And I have some people that are, the generation after us or the second generation, even younger, and their drug lists in session are incredibly long.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
what's interesting is that these drugs have replaced alcohol in a lot of cases
Right. Well,
because
alcohol is
they get a lot
okay.
more. Yeah,
They start getting alcohol in high school for 15, 16 years old. They
yeah,
start an alcohol thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it doesn't provide the release or the high that these drugs do. So they don't go towards alcohol anymore. They go towards these hardcore drugs. That I mean, MDMA, for example, uh, you know, uh, H, which is an elephant tranquilizer. An elephant tranquilizer. Can you imagine what that does to a 120-pound woman or 100,
Mm.
150, 175-pound man? I mean, you just, wow. And it's hard to run that stuff out. So LRH said, look, we got to get the drugs out of their system first. Let's get them up the grade so they can talk to the auditor. Once the drugs are out of restimulation, then we can do new aerodynamics and they can really front up to the case. Otherwise, they don't get very far very quickly or at all.
Yeah. Wow. So the grade that's good. So the grades help you become a better PC, and then you can finally go into new aerodynamics. I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I gotta say this. I've had a lot of people that have come to us and said, "Oh yeah, I've done the grades. I'm good," and I go in and I find out when I get them on the meter, no, they haven't.
Mm-hmm.
And if
Yeah.
one got through, you always know they didn't get the results of the grades because if you're really, 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 really set up with the grades, which is what they do, the gains that you can have on the OT levels are 4 to 5 times better than what you would
Nice.
ever get if you hadn't been set up on the grades. Do not underestimate the power of Scientology grades processing because it makes such a difference. It in auditing people as well. They're just a joy to audit. We call them Cadillac PCs
Mm.
because they're so fun and easy to audit, like yourself. I mean, it's a
Mm.
joy to take you in session because you're cogniting, you're going, oh my gosh, oh, I mean, and it's so fun to audit somebody like that, and instead of, uh,
Mhm. Yeah.
see,
Yeah. And with that drug case, like it would just be I can see how it'd be super challenging. And then you get so after the grades, you become so capable as a PC. Now I'm gonna say this because you're an auditor, and I am, your PC clear pre-OT person, whatever.
mhm,
But for me, these grades helped me also be a better person.
mhm,
And I'm gonna say this for real, even just going out to grade zero communication. When I did grade zero, going and being in the room with my father.
Mm-hmm.
And let me take it back because he wouldn't let me in the room. I was at the threshold of his bedroom door, and I'm trying to contact him, trying to talk to him, and he cannot communicate with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I get stuck in that moment. Like I in session, go back to this time. I'm standing at the threshold of the door trying to talk to my father. It was the most amazing release to release that and to get out of that stuff when it comes to grade zero. So these so many wins that just allowed me to be more free while going up the bridge, going through the grades. I
Mm-hmm.
just say, listen, it's good to do it as a person. I
Yeah,
mean,
you're
PC is one,
yeah, you're
but
just getting the
yeah,
roadblocks out of the way that you think are normal because that's what you've existed with forever, and you just go, well, isn't that how things are? I mean, we have
right.
at the end of grade zero, we have the 0A and 0B lists, and you assess terminals, and with one of them's father, and you didn't have to do this because it was obvious, from CS
Mhm,
adjudication, you didn't need it, but if
mhm,
your father comes up as a reading terminal or person of interest, and then you sit there and say, okay, so if you could talk to your father, and I know it sounds simple, but if you could talk to your father about love, what would you say?
mhm.
That's the process, because love is a
Yeah.
reading item as well. And if you could talk to your father about love, what would you say exactly? Okay, so you
Mhm.
do that process and the person changes their mind about that, and you're like, yeah, you know what? I could talk to my father about how much I love him, whether he loves me or not. And
Yeah.
I'm comfortable being there, and I can do that to the point. I mean, how many people listening to this podcast who haven't had a grade zero auditing could sit down and just talk to their dad and say, Dad, put their hand on their knee and just go, I want to talk to you about love.
What? You're like,
Right. Right. Right.
yeah,
It could be your postman. If you could talk to your postman about love, what would you say? And if you could talk to your postman about love, what would you say exactly? And then you get into other things. If you could talk to your postman about cunnilingus, what would you say? If you could
yeah.
talk to your postman about cunnilingus, what
You
would you say exactly? I'm not joking.
exactly.
These are things that happen in session.
And I'm telling you, to be able to communicate with anybody about any subject, it changes your life.
Yeah.
It really does. I can't tell you how many places I was in airport. I was in an airport in was it in Bali? I think it was in Bali. I was in the airport and I wanted a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't speak the English there like that. And so I'm trying to get what I want. I'm trying to put my order in. And I had to communicate with this person who does not speak my language, but I had to get what I wanted. And I was able to communicate with him without speaking either of us speaking each other's language and get exactly what I wanted to order. And I know it was because of my training and what I was capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because most people would have had to write it down or do something else. I don't know how they would do it, but it was really, really interesting. I was like, yeah, that's grade zero.
Mm-hmm.
I knew
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, Scientology girl does it all the time with me, and my jaw drops like we're in an Uber and stuff like that, and she'll bring up these subjects. I don't because I there's a bit of a language barrier for me because of the accents, but she'll
Yeah.
bring up something to an Uber driver there, and I have to keep my jaw closed, and she is completely comfortable about talking about these subjects to these Uber drivers, and they just glow that
Yeah.
somebody took the time to talk to them about these subjects that
Yep.
are verboten in German, forbidden to be
Yep.
talked about. And that
That's
is,
true.
I mean, you're basically taking a guy in session and you're talking to somebody, and the changes that it makes when you can sit there and say, and I'm just giving an example, baby, what's going on with you?
Yes.
Because nobody took the time to grant them beingness and treat them
Mhm.
that way and have a conversation about something that in society is typically just a no-go zone. That's what
Right.
the ability to communicate is all about.
Yeah.
That's what grade zero does for you. Now, if you can do that with a stranger, just think about what you could do with your auditor.
Yeah. So now what's the difference between new aerodynamics and expanded dynamics? I know standard Dianetics like book one, and then there's New Era, and then there's expanded.
Well, expanded Dianetics was developed to handle evil purposes through the guise of standard Dianetics at the time in 1971. Standard Dianetics was what was around from the mid to late 60s all the way up until 1977, 78 when New Era Dianetics came out. Expanded Dianetics was used to improve a person's OCA graph for people that were troubled by evil purposes. Now, ultimately, less than 10 years later, LRH would come up with the false purpose rundown, which is a Scientology methodology that also handles evil purposes through handling overts and withholds, prior confusions, and evil purposes. Now, again, in the 70s, this technology came from what he found out on New Era Dianetics for OTs, which, as an interesting side note, New Era Dianetics for OTs contains no Dianetics at all, but it was used as a marketing ploy because you can't audit Dianetics on a clear. New Era Dianetics for OTs handles evil purposes faster and better than anything we have in Scientology, but LRH developed expanded Dianetics and FPRD to handle evil purposes lower on the bridge if they were preventing a person's bridge progress.
Now, when you say evil purposes, what does that mean?
Well, an evil purpose is a purpose. Well, what's an evil purpose? Give me an evil purpose. What evil purposes have you heard people say before?
Putting people in the gas chamber.
Yeah, that's an evil purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, evil purposes usually manifest in very obvious ways, but a lot of people they hide and withhold their evil purposes, and they show up as a needle phenomena called a rock slam on the e-meter. And if you're taking a person in, you'll see these rock slams, and the CS will say, God, this guy's got 7-8 rock slams in session. We need to do something about this, because they aren't going to get any case gain unless those evil purposes are handled first, because their attention is tied down to these evil purposes and committing constant overts through the use of those evil purposes on others.
Yeah. Okay. I get that, because after going through it, let me tell you something. The stuff that comes up in expanded Dianetics, what is it? What does it say? Freedom from cruel impulses and chronic unwanted conditions, right? Like, yeah, there's stuff that comes up, these cruel impulses and chronic unwanted. There's stuff that comes up when you get to this level that you're like, what is this? Why am I thinking like this?
Why
Why is
would
this
I?
stuff coming up?
Right? Why would I ever think that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it reads. It
Yeah.
reads. So
Yeah. So these
wow.
things hold people up from getting up the bridge, because they just can't help themselves go off and do, the most heinous things, and they're totally okay with it and they enjoy it. But
Yeah.
there's reasons for that. That's and these handle them from different aspects of using Dianetics or using false purpose rundown. Ned for OTs handles it terminatedly beyond compare, ultimately. So there's 3 different ways, just like drugs, to handle evil purposes.
Got it. Well, and it just goes up and up and up from here. Listen, we could talk about this all day. Um, how about this? Because I think we've done a podcast on the OT level.
Yeah, we
talked
have.
about the OT levels. So what we really just wanted to get over to you in this conversation was why going up the bridge is so important. We wanted to talk to you about why the training side and getting trained as an auditor, getting auditor training actually benefits you in life. It benefits you when you're in session. It benefits you as it relates to you getting up the bridge a lot faster, a lot more stably. And wanted to just show you how LRH created this and how he pinned this so that you can know why the bridge is the bridge, So I love it.
Yeah, well, it's imperative, given the direction that things are heading here on planet Earth in 2024, that we have more trained auditors, and we need them right away to turn this ship around. And it's easy to do. It doesn't take a long time. I did my class 4 training in 6 months, 10 to 10.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you know, the gains that I've had from that, and the sanity that it is put in my life in dealing with others and dealing with myself is incomparable, and I can't recommend it enough. And it can quite save your life numbers of times over. If you have the tech of something, you cannot be the adverse effect of it. That is the hallmark of getting trained.
That's perfect. Well,
So
I,
go ahead.
no, I just say I like it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, you know, I miss being in training 10 hours a day more than anything, and I wish I had more time to get more training, especially admin training on things, because there's just such a body of work on the admin side that I haven't been able to have the time to do because I'm too busy auditing. So, you know, get it while you can. We can deliver it. We can get you the word clearing, whatever you want to do, whatever subject. Ella Rates wrote about it, and we can get you on course and put you a cause over that area, and make you a superstar.
Perfect.
So for Quentin Stroud and myself, we hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you have any questions, we post this on YouTube. You can put questions there. Or you can message us on ao-gp.org. And it's going across all of the podcast platforms too. We'll get this out to you as soon as possible. And we're going to do another podcast either tomorrow or Friday, and we'll get that posted too. We hope you enjoyed it. For Quentin and I, namaste. And did you want to say something?
I just want to say, yes, definitely ask questions here, but also go into the Facebook group. Go into the Facebook group. Give them the Facebook group name so that they
Oh,
can
well,
so they can
if you
access
go to
it.
Facebook and you just type in AOGP, we have several different groups that come up on there. We have 6 or 7
Independent Scientology,
different,
yeah.
yeah, different groups in there for different purposes, and we have questions and answers regarding independent Scientology that's been growing by leaps and bounds lately, where people
Hmm.
are joining and asking questions and things like that. I don't know what changed, but we've got probably a dozen people adding on a week, and they're contributing. They're not, you know, they're a pleasure to have on there. So hit us up on
Yes.
Facebook and YouTube. Make sure to subscribe and like and comment to boost us into the algorithm as far as the ratings on YouTube, so that more people see these podcasts on there. And you might have yourself a twin by so doing. For a course.
There you go.
So for Quentin Stroud and myself, namaste, and we love you.
Peace.